5 won't tell us everything about the SEC moving into the month of October, and in my opinion, that's a good thing. Like, do you remember in years past where Alabama and Georgia and sometimes Florida or an LSU would start to pull away from everyone, and we as a college football community would wave the white flag and go, best of luck in Atlanta or the college football playoff, and we're going to get ready for the Gator Bowl? That's no longer the case because there's a 12-team postseason picture, which means multiple programs from the SEC will be represented, even those that don't go to the title game. And we can't have foregone conclusions until probably Halloween weekend. But with that being said, there still are critical matchups heading into the month of October. Alabama versus Georgia, Arkansas versus Texas A&M in the Southwest Classic. What's going to happen on the plains as Auburn takes on Oklahoma? I got questions. And that's why you're here. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification down below, and real quickly, just make sure that you have that subscribe button turned on because this is your number one source for all things SEC moving forward. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on all the socials at SEC Unfiltered. If you want the back and forth banner between you and I to continue, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson on both Twitter and Instagram. And check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Look good and feel good this upcoming fall with Roback.com by using the promo code SECU on all joggers, polos, hoodies, shorts, much, much more. You want to take those fall foliage pictures? You do so by wearing the nice gear from Roback, promo code SECU. As we always do, the quick honorable mentions of major questions that we got to hit to. Number one, Mississippi State. What is the offense? It has been dreadful down in Starkville right now. The cowbells are basically ringing at an all-time low. But you had Blake Shapen. And Blake Shapen, for my money, with a guy like Jeff Lebby, was an ideal fit. Well, you don't have Blake Shapen anymore. He's out for the rest of the year, and now you got to turn to Michael Van Buren. But you did see a run game start to be profiled last week, whether it was Johnny Daniels, whether it was Kevon Lee, whether it was Davin Booth. You're only averaging 3.7 yards as a program, but you did find the end zone on multiple occasions. Can that now be your offense? Because we know at this point, the defense, hit and miss. We know at this point, we're not going to see the same type of offensive consistency with Van Buren under center. So what do you make of this offense moving forward? Or is it just going to be a very long, you know what, we're not even going to get into this because I don't want to be that upset for Mississippi State fans. It's going to be a long year in Starkville. Texas, who are your dudes? I say this kindly because of, at this point, we don't know the separation between what's the first team offense and the second team offense, which is why I have Texas as the number one team in the country. If you were to tell me, just take off the logo and take off the names on the back of the jersey, that was the second team unit, and actually was the first team unit, I would believe you, because if they're moving in the same direction at all times, they are humming at the right moment, whether it be Jonte Cook, Ryan Wingo, Silas Bolden, Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, Amari Niblack, Gunnar Helm, Trey Wisner, what you got, of course, in Jaden Blue. But who are your guys moving into this next game? You play Mississippi State, then you get a bye, and then becomes the heart of your schedule. Really a 2-game period that you have to dominate. Red River and Georgia. And in those games, you have to truly see who are the difference makers. So in this matchup, you got to find out which players will become that. Is it an Isaiah Bond? Is it a Gunnar Helm? Is it a Silas Bolden? Is it a Matthew Golden? Is it potentially even a Ryan Wingo, who we didn't expect much from in year one? But who are the guys for Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning? Really Quinn Ewers, because once Quinn gets back fully healthy, we know he is QB1. We know he is built for this type of moment, but what can we make of him? And lastly, LSU, can you make the most of your run game? At this point, trying to go ahead and figure out if LSU's run game is sustainable is like looking for a piece of hay in a needle stack. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. You're not going to want to see the results. And ultimately, it's not worth the hype. So how do you make the most of those rushing situations? Like if it is a 2nd and 2, can Josh Williams pile drive forward to pick up a fresh set of downs, to set up the passing attack? If you are in a 1st and 10, can Caden Durham give you 2nd and manageable? When you're in the red zone, can you capitalize with both of these players? And more importantly, can you see someone separate itself from the terms of where they are in the running back room? I think Joshua Williams has earned the respect of the locker room. He wears number 18 for a reason. I think Caden Durham maybe gives you more of a stability at the running back position. But South Alabama, it's a game that you should feel comfortable winning, even if it does come down to the 4th quarter where you pull away. But really, for my money, everything about this is setting the tone moving forward into SEC, more rigorous competition. You play you play Ole Miss in 2 weeks. Can you find a way to make the run game sustainable whenever you have to go to it? Now let's talk about the major questions. Georgia, traveling on into Tuscaloosa, Alabama to take on the Crimson Tide. I have one. Can Carson Beck be him? Can Carson Beck be him? Because we all heard about what happened last year where he decided to come on back, didn't like his NFL draft stock, going to play against more challenging competition. There's a standard set in Athens where he is supposed to be the guy, and he's earned that right. He's earned the right to be the top tier quarterback of the number one team in the country. And on multiple occasions last year, looked the part. There was a stretch where he was so hot, if you were a bettor, you were always walking away with green in your pocket. That's how decisive and how consistent he was last year. But it was also another caveat added in. Well, who has he played? I've never bought into that scenario. You know I don't buy into that scenario. I don't really care who you play. I care how you play. But there hasn't been a competition that Carson Beck has gone up against and won like Alabama. And we know that because last year, they didn't win against Alabama. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to make this clear because I know the Georgia fans love to come in the comment section and say, but Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers weren't fully healthy down in Atlanta. They weren't. And also, they weren't healthy for the entire season, which is why I give them a pass when it comes to using that as an excuse. If they were playing fully healthy, who knows what would have happened. But at the same time, if maybe Alabama had Jamison Williams and John Mechie, we wouldn't be talking about the Georgia Bulldogs sitting as a 2-time back-to-back national champion. But regardless, Carson Beck has got to be him. Alabama can be an explosive offense that takes the tops off of defenses and will capitalize on critical mistakes. So Carson Beck has to play pace. Carson Beck has got to be able to put on that helmet and make decisive, quick, clean throws that are always going to go to the right targets. Because you don't have a Brock Bowers. You don't have a Ladd McConkey. And you may not even have a consistent number one receiver at this point. It doesn't mean it can't unfold, and it doesn't mean that going into your other matchups, it can't end up being a big difference maker. But for this game, where the crowd will be ravenous for 4 quarters, where the lights will be at its brightest, in the game of all games, Carson Beck has got to deliver a performance where afterwards he looks out at the crowd and Brian Denny as they're walking to the stands and out to the watering holes to drown their sorrows away saying, I'm him. That's what you need to see tonight. That's what you need to see on a Saturday night in Tuscaloosa from your quarterback. Because if he is, it's only the start. You have to realize that Georgia's schedule, they will earn their way into the college football playoff. Games against Ole Miss, games against Tennessee. We already know that the oldest rivalry in the South has its trials and tribulations. You got a game against Texas. It is going to be a rocky path to the postseason, and you can't afford to really look sluggish with a quarterback that many people believe was the favorite to win the Heisman at the start of the year. So can you see Carson Beck get back to that level? He's always completed over 60% of his throws. He hasn't had a multi-turnover game in his career. Can you do that once again in the belly of the beast? And I will tell you what, Bryant-Denny Stadium may get a lot of flack for how fans leave the field on time, but when it is humming, it is one of the most toxic, lethal, deadly disaster scenarios in all of college football. And believe me, I've watched it. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes being an Alabama grad. I know what disaster looks like for an opposing team that walks on into the building. And speaking of Alabama, can you control the time of possession? Alabama is one of the most explosive offenses in the country, and their numbers back it up. They're not only great on the ground when it comes to massive 40-yard runs from Justice Haynes, Sham Miller, and even quarterback Jalen Milroe, but they also have dudes like Ryan Williams, Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, and countless others that can boot, scoot, and boogie in the end zone like Brooks and Dunn and be basically grease lightning at the line of scrimmage. They're that good. They're that good. And their defense, albeit still has some question marks, they can capitalize and carve up turnovers like no one's business. But can you control that time of possession? Because Alabama right now is currently 83rd in the country when it comes to time of possession. They're averaging the ball less than 28 total minutes per game. You can't win that way with a team like Georgia. Georgia might be gassed on defense, but if they can strike quickly, your defense will be gassed. What you need to do is you need to tire Georgia's defensive front down because they're not going to be playing at full strength. And frankly, I hate to break it to you, Georgia fans, you may not want to hear it, but the offensive and defensive lines for both systems currently are nowhere near the standard of what we've seen underneath Kirby Smart. Not even remotely close. So for my money, Can you bring the fight in your own backyard and make this a trudging draw match? Because I don't think you're scoring 49 points against Georgia's defense. Death taxes, this game hitting the under is exactly what I think is going to happen. But can you control the tempo? Can you allow yourself to not have to just wonder about a 75-yard pass to Ryan Williams or a 68-yard pass to Jeremy Bernard or a 62-yard run from Justice Haynes? And they're celebrating in the end zone and the Shakers are rattling throughout Bryant-Denny Stadium. But then you're on the sidelines and you're watching as your defense can't bail your offense out of trouble. And they're now marching and they're now controlling the tempo. And here we are looking at Alabama needing now that explosivity to come into the final minute of the game, or they're walking away with their first down in the Kalen DeBoer era. It's just a thought. You play the slow ball. You have the variety of pitches. You set yourself up in a position to where you're walking away with that consistency. You're winning this game. That has been my X factor from the get-go. And my biggest question is moving into more rigorous competition against teams like Tennessee, against teams like potentially Texas, if you were to play them in the SEC title, Ole Miss. You still got a matchup against a Missouri squad that can strike. Can you control the tempo to keep yourself ahead? And I have one more, and this is a big question overall, and it has to do with this game because I've been on record, and I'm going to go on record multiple times until further notice. This is the game of the year because it is potentially the turning of the tides. And my question is, was it a Nick thing or was it a Bama thing? And it's not just directed at Georgia. Kirby Smart is 1-5 against Alabama, and he won his first in the national championship. And he's had heartbreak in multiple different opportunities. 2nd and 26, the SEC championship, where he decided to use Justin Fields as a fake punter, and there was the redemption arc for Jalen Hurts. Multiple games have we watched as Alabama has bested Kirby Smart with Nick Saban at the helm. Bryce Young, Heisman Trophy moment last year with an undefeated record at the reach. We've seen it. But it's more than that. Was it an Alabama thing? If Alabama comes out in their own backyard and they deliver the performance that looks like just vintage Nick Saban-led rosters, it's more than just Kirby Smart. It's more than just Nick Saban. It still is the standard that has resided for decades down in Titletown, USA. It is still the enigma of what is supposed to be the expected goals by those who work out in every locker room, in every weight session, in every film study, in every tackle, in every hot sweltering practice in the summer heat. That is the goal. And Georgia gets a chance to strike because Georgia, they have been licking their chops for the moment. Every single workout, every single drill, every single film study, every single blood, sweat, and tear moment has led up to this night. And for Alabama, at the same time, was it a Nick thing? Was it just Nick's magic of being the guru of the sport, the czar who we will talk about in auras and ages as the greatest masterminds who ever grace a football field in our beautiful sport? Was it just him being better than everyone else? Because if you also go out there and it's a performance to flag, it's a performance to criticize, it's a performance to where we have to throw up the TVMA logo right up there. Kids, turn your eyes, go on home. It's the fourth quarter and it looks like a game against Chattanooga because of how bad of a bludgeoning Georgia decided to deliver the punch. Was it a Nick thing? Were all those years of success simply because you had the greatest coach to ever walk a sideline? It means it for both. So many people think that this is a game where Kirby has to come out and show why he is the next king of college football. It's also for Alabama to realize what they could be even without the current one. So whatever way you look at it, it's a big game for both. Let's not spend any more time talking about Alabama. Let's talk about Auburn. I can't blame the quarterbacks anymore. I can't. And you know what? They're going to be criticized because they're getting paid a lot of money to be there on NIL deals. And I have no problem with Hugh Freeze calling out his passers, especially as long as he calls himself out for anemic coaching. But can wide receivers stop dropping the damn ball? That's all I'm asking for. This offense has the pieces to be really good. And when it is humming, it is really, really promising. Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson. I even think when you look at Keandre Lambert-Smith, he's not really a complimentary piece. He can be an X factor. When you throw in Robert Lewis, when you throw in Rivaldo Fairweather, they got dudes. And I haven't talked about some of the younger guys that have yet to find their footing. But I've already made this clear. The quarterback issue is one thing, but the offense in general is just nowhere near close to being anywhere in the conversation of a college football playoff team. And partially, that's on Hugh still running the same playbook that he had back in 2014 when he was down at Ole Miss. And partially, it's critical mistakes being made by the playmakers. The Peyton Thorne interception last week, God bless him. I am the biggest Peyton Thorne doubter in all of college football lore. And I even had to say, that's on Cam Coleman. And you're going up against a stingy defense in Oklahoma that has no direction on offense right now because of their offensive line is hurt. They have more questions at wide receiver than going up against a 20-question quiz master. Can you capitalize on that? Can your receivers just hold on to the football to give you a fresh set of downs, to get you inside the red zone? Because if you do that, the turnovers are going to be seldom at best. And at that point, at least things could be interesting. I think that this is a low-scoring game. I am hammering the under in Thompson's top picks this week. There is no shot that they're going to hit over 50 combined points. No shot. But can you make it to where going into the fourth quarter, you're putting the pressure on a true freshman in Michael Hawkins to play in, for my money, the third most dire atmosphere in all of college football when it is humming? And he is going to have to go ahead and capitalize. I don't think you can. I don't think any freshman can do that. At Jordan-Hare Stadium, when it is rocking the way that it should in the fourth quarter, no freshman in all of college football can be that guy. But can your wide receivers, outside of Keandre Lambert-Smith with 2 67-yard scores, can they hold on to the football? Because whether it be Hank Brown, whether it be Peyton Thorne, you're going to see a turnover in this game. You're going to. I hate to break it to you. But if you hold on to the football, it's because of the quarterback and not because of the wide receiver. And speaking of which, Oklahoma, can you avoid third down? I know what you're saying. Why, Cole? Why avoid third down? Why avoid third down? Because this feels like a joke. It is a joke. You're 113th in third down conversions. You're awful on third down. You are more likely to punt than pass on third down. In fact, at this point, you would be better off trusting your defense if you can't convert on second down than trust your offense to go ahead and get 5 yards. Can you avoid third down? Can you see a Michael Hawkins be able to run to the open field to pick up a fresh set of downs on 2nd and 8? Can you watch as a Gavin Sawchuk finds a way to create separation in this game? Can you watch as a Bauer Sharp gets an 8-yard pass, and instead of it being a 3rd and 9, it's actually more so a 3rd and 1? I mean, honestly, that's all I think you're asking for at this point because your defense is going to do its job. Your defense ranks top 25 in every single category. But when you get to that 3rd and short, can you capitalize or can you avoid it altogether? Whether it be with Taylor Tatum, whether it be with Javonte Banks, whether it be with one of your breakout wide receivers who God knows who's going to be playing that for number 9 this week. I can't guess. But can somebody be that dude? Because if so, there's at least life here. The defense is going to corral. They're going to get some turnovers. They're going to pressure quarterbacks into making mistakes on the planes. But you have to be able to see this offense hum. And if it can hum without being on third down, you're humming in the right direction. And maybe that's all you need just to avoid more injuries, setting up for what's going to be Red River next week. Let's talk a little bit about Ole Miss. Was it fool's gold? I know what you're saying. Cole, you're the biggest Dartnado believer. Cole, you've been hyping up Ole Miss all offseason. I have been doing that. And you want to know why? Because let me read off the numbers. Number 1 in scoring, number 1 in passing, number 1 in total yards, number 1 in first downs. They've allowed 1 sack. They're number 7 in third down conversions, number 12 in rushing. Oh, I haven't even gotten to the defense yet. They're number 1 in scoring defense, number 1 against the run, number 12 in total defense, number 7 in sacks, number 3 in tackles for losses, and they're number 5 in opponent's third down conversion rate. And then I tell you who they played, and then you go, oh, that's why they're not the number 1 team in the country. FCS Furman, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, and of course we have to throw in the other team, which I can't believe I'm blanking off the top of my head, Middle Tennessee State. There we go. I knew it would come back to me at some point. That's not worthy of being the number 1 team in the country. But if you do that against Kentucky, with Jackson Dart, with Caden Prieskorn, with Trey Harris, averaging 29.2 yards per play and over 125 yards per contest, Juice Wells, the same defensive formalities, it's not fool's gold. It's the reality of what is going to be every SEC opponent's matchup. You're not going to be able to slow down this offense. The defense is going to give you their best punch, and they feel like a roster that actually belongs in the college football playoff, not hunt, but firm ground. They're already locked in. You can basically put them alongside Texas and say, hey, It only matters on what seed we are. Are we going to be hosting a game or are we traveling? That's the way I feel about this because Kentucky is a whole different beast. And yes, their offense has been sluggish, more so than even you could say a slughorn at Hogwarts. But still, this to me is a testament against that defense. Their defense is averaging less than 12.2 yards per play. 12.2 points per game and less than 225 points per contest. That's what you're going up against. So can you do it? Can you sustain that? Can what we watched against everyone else, the Blue Raiders, the Paladins, the Demon Deacons, could you exercise all of those demons out against those teams? And now when you have to play against SEC competition, where the win-loss record actually does factor into your success going to Atlanta, can you deliver the same performance? Is it just still the same aura around Oxford, or was the Grove humming because of inferior competition? And then Kentucky, I won't spend a lot of time on this one because I think that we know that the defense has done its job. You had the big blue wall setting up countless opportunities for this offense to get back on the field. Did so against Georgia. Certainly did so in the first other games against Ohio and Southern Miss. But can you do so against Ole Miss? And more importantly, can you capitalize if you're Brock Vandagriff? My question is, can Brock Vandagriff's 5 or 6 top key throws end up connecting? Because the ground game is the ground game. You're going to get back a Chip Trainum. You have Demi Sumo Karambe. I know I probably said that wrong. I definitely know I said that wrong. Sumo Man is what we're going to call him from here on out. That way I don't make that mistake. If Sumo Man can continue to pile drive forward, you set yourself up in good position. But Brock Vandagriff, outside of his legs, is going to give you 5 or 6 really good throws. Can you connect on those 5 or 6 good throws? Because you have the receivers. Barian Brown, Dane Key, and Jamori Macklin, for my money, are the most slept-on receiving core in the SEC. Can they deliver, and can Brock deliver? Or was it all just smoke and mirrors and the highlight passes on social media during the offseason? Because Ole Miss's one weakness right now is its secondary, currently 63rd in the country in not only conversion rate through the year, but also in passing yards allowed per game. They are struggling against inferior wide receivers, and this will be their toughest task so far. So can you capitalize, whether it be a 35-yard gain to Barian Brown, whether it be a 61-yard pass to Dane Key, whether it be a 28-yard completion to Jamori Macklin, or one of your tight ends? Can those 5 plays set you up in great field position to where the defense is going to have to deliver in Oxford? Because if you get that, this thing may be closer than expected. Last game, Southwest Classic, real quickly. Thank God we're done in Arlington. Jerry World, I wish you the best. I've had fond memories covering this game. And Jerry Jones, I know one day you'll be looking up from us saying how proud you are the Hogs won a national title. It won't be in 2024 for obvious reasons, and we're not going to get into that. But still, you'll be looking up at us and going, well, good job, Hogs. Can you win one for me one time this year, though? Can we do it? Well, let's find out. For me, Arkansas, can you complete first downs? Fun fact, Arkansas is number 2 in the country in not just total first downs with 117, but they're number 2 in the country in average first downs per game with 29.2. They're really good at winning on first down, and they're really good at milking that clock. That time of possession extremely bodes well in their favor. So can you go ahead and get that Taylor Green turnover out of the way in the first quarter? Because it's going to happen. We know it is. At this point, Def taxes number 10, throwing a pick or a fumble. And can you capitalize with getting more consistent plays? Can you watch an Andrew Armstrong pick up a 28-yard gain? Can you watch a Jaquindon Jackson run it 3 times in a row and there's a fresh set of downs and the moving of the sticks? Can you watch as potentially a Luke Haas gets a 7-yard completion and then a Jaquindon Jackson 3-yard run and then a Taylor Green 20-yard scramble? And then you watch as Andrew Armstrong connects and it's first down after first down after first down against a young defense, albeit very talented, but still a little flawed compared to other units. A lot was brought in via the portal, and they're still trying to hone in as one cohesive unit. This is a game where in years past, Texas A&M has capitalized on Arkansas's mistakes. Can Arkansas capitalize on Texas A&M's mistakes? Someone being aligned incorrectly, someone being out of pocket when it comes to the pass coverage, somebody on defense forcing a fumble to get the ball back at midfield, and then you milk that clock down to at least walk away with 3 points going into halftime. That's what I'm looking for from Arkansas, because at this point, I don't think Arkansas belongs in my pretender category. They're certainly not in the wait and see category, and I'm never putting them in the contender category. I can't do it, Hog Nation. But you can be the spoiler category And Hog City could be humming when it comes to what defines spoiler in 2024. Absolutely. Texas A&M, can they force third and uncomfortable? Much like Oklahoma, you have seen the struggles on third down for Arkansas. Can you make it to where it has to be a pass? Basically, when I say third and uncomfortable, it means the defensive side already knows what you're going to be doing, and it's up to them to get one more stop. You can't open up the playbook and have a 20-yard run or a 15-yard quick little option, an RPO, to where at the last second you decide to tuck it and keep it. You know you have to pass. Can you make it third and uncomfortable for a team like Arkansas? For a Bobby Petrino offense, an offense that Mike Elko should know, because last year down in College Station, there's so much film on what didn't work for a team with Connor Wegman, with Max Johnson, with Jalen Henderson. Whoever was quarterback, you knew it wasn't working. So can it work in your favor this time? You just got to go back and watch last year's game and say, here's why Arkansas was able to keep this thing interesting going into the fourth quarter. That's all you have to say, because that was your offense that you saw last year. Can you make it third and uncomfortable? Can you make it to where this team basically is waving the white flag and going, we're passing. Hey, we're passing. You know we're doing it. It's going to happen. Taylor Green, is this a turnover or is this a touchdown? 50-50 shot, buddy. Let's go ahead and spin the wheel of madness. That's what you're going to get. And if that happens, A&M, who right now still has an outside shot of entering the contender category, certainly a dark horse to go ahead and make it to 10 wins this year. And 10 wins with the A&M branding, the logo, and the pedigree could be a college football playoff sleeper. They could. If they do that, they're walking away 4-1, and they're carrying that momentum to take on a trudging Missouri roster that desperately needs a marquee win. And a marquee win for A&M also comes against a potential top 15 opponent of the Tigers that currently reside in Como. But let me know in the comment section down below, what are your overall questions and thoughts that you have going into week 5? Make sure that also you like, rate, review, subscribe, follow us on the social channels at SEC Unfiltered. Keep up with me at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks, have a happy weekend. Later.